Are you earning a six-figure salary but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Yeah, you are not alone. So today, we're going to dig into this thing called the high earner paradox and figure out why a huge income doesn't automatically make you wealthy.
I mean, this is the big question, right? You finally get that promotion, you cross that magic income number you've been working towards for years, but that feeling of being financially secure, it just never shows up. Instead, you're working harder than ever, and it feels like you're just treading water paycheck to paycheck, wondering where on earth all that money is actually going.
And look, this isn't just a feeling, it's a fact. Get this, a recent study found that Americans earning over 100 grand were actually more likely to report living paycheck to paycheck than people earning just $50,000. I mean, how does that even happen? That's the disconnect we're going to unravel today.
There's actually a name for this group, Henrys. It stands for high earners, not rich yet. This term was actually coined way back in 2003, and it's for people who, yeah, they've got a great income, but they spend it just as fast as it comes in. At the end of the day, they have very little actual wealth to show for all that hard work.
Okay, so what is really going on here? Well, the first culprit is probably something you've heard of before, but stick with me, because it's got a secret twin that's way more powerful. We're going to break down this inflation double bind.
Right, so the first thing everyone points to is lifestyle inflation, lifestyle creep. And yeah, that's that natural pull to upgrade everything. The car, the house, the vacations, the second you get a raise. And look, that's definitely part of the story. But it is not the whole story.
All right, this is really important, so let's break this down. On one hand, you've got behavioral inflation. These are the choices you make, deciding to get the nicer car, taking more trips, eating out at fancier places. But then you've got its sneaky twin, structural inflation. And this is the stuff you have almost no control over. This is your rent suddenly jumping up, or school fees getting more expensive, or your health insurance premiums going through the roof. These costs hit your bank account before you even get a chance to think about spending your money.
Okay, now look at how this plays out in the real world. This is where it gets crazy. So let's say you get a solid 8% raise on your $150,000 salary. On paper, that's an extra $12,000 a year. Awesome, right? Well, hold on. After taxes take their bite, that's really more like $667 extra a month. But then, remember that structural inflation we just talked about? You subtract the average increase in those mandatory costs, and suddenly, that big exciting raise shrinks down to maybe what? $367 a month in actual spending money? And that is the trap.
So we've seen the numbers, and they're kind of depressing. But what about the psychology behind it all? Turns out there are these hidden scripts, these invisible forces that are pretty much telling your wallet what to do.
This quote right here basically sums up something called Parkinson's Law. It's this idea that was first noticed in government offices, but it applies perfectly to our personal finances. It's like a law of nature. Our spending will always expand to fill the money we have available. It's like pouring water into a bigger and bigger glass. It just fills it up. If you don't have a plan, you are almost guaranteed to spend every last dollar, no matter how much you make.
But wait, there's more. As powerful as that idea is, there's another, even sneakier script running in the background. It's this hidden consumer trap that was actually figured out centuries ago by a philosopher of all people, and it is more relevant today than ever.
And that brings us to the Diderot effect. It's a fantastic story. So this philosopher, Denis Diderot, gets this beautiful new scarlet dressing gown as a gift. It's amazing. But then he looks around his study, and suddenly, everything else looks old and shabby in comparison. The new gown just doesn't fit in. So what does he do? He replaces his old chair to match the gown, and then he needs a new desk to go with the new chair, and then new art for the walls, and before he knows it, he's in debt. All because he was trying to create this sense of unity that started with one single purchase. Does that sound at all familiar? You buy a new phone and suddenly you need the perfect case for it. And then, of course, the new wireless earbuds to match. Yep, that's the Diderot effect right there in your shopping cart.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about spending getting out of control. But what about when you actually do the right thing and you save? Well, believe it or not, even then you can find yourself stuck in what some people call a golden cage. Just take a look at this chart. It's a pretty typical breakdown for a high earner. On paper, this person is doing great. They have a high net worth. But here's the catch. Look where the money is. Almost all of it, like 90% of it, is tied up in places they can't easily get to. It's illiquid. It's locked away in their 401k, which they can't touch for decades without getting hit with a huge penalty, and it's in their home equity, which isn't exactly cash you can use to buy groceries.
They're what you'd call a paper millionaire, rich on a spreadsheet, but with very little cash on hand.
And this is what people mean when they talk about the middle-class trap. It's this weird situation where you do everything you're supposed to do, right? You buy the house, you max out your retirement accounts, but you end up with all this wealth that you can't actually use to improve your life now or to maybe achieve financial freedom a little earlier. You're trapped, forced to keep working that high-stress job because even though your net worth says you're rich, you can't access the money.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time diagnosing the problem, picking apart all the traps. Now for the good part. How do you get out? Here's a really straightforward 3-step action plan to help you escape the cycle.
All right, here's your toolkit for financial freedom. It's 3 simple but powerful steps. First, to fight back against Parkinson's law and that sneaky lifestyle inflation, you have to pay yourself first automatically. The very day you get a raise, before you even have a chance to think about spending it, set up an automatic transfer. Send at least half of that new money straight into your investment account. Out of sight, out of mind. Second, to break the spell of the Diderot effect, you're going to implement the 72-hour rule. It's simple. For any purchase that isn't an absolute necessity, just wait 3 days. That powerful emotional urge to buy right now, it almost always disappears. And finally, step 3. To escape that golden cage of being a paper millionaire, you need to build a liquidity bridge. This means that in addition to your 401k, you need to be building up a regular taxable brokerage account. This is your accessible money, a fund you can tap into for your goals before you hit retirement age without paying any penalties.
So I want to leave you with the same question that Diderot himself ended up asking. He wrote, "I was the absolute master of my old dressing gown, but I have become a slave to my new one." So you have to ask yourself, are your possessions serving you or are you serving them? Just thinking about that is the first step. The next step is taking action. Start with just one of the things we talked about today, and you'll be on your way to building a life of real financial freedom.